34 years, and I've been with the Conservancy for 23 years now. And tonight I want to tell you a little bit about, first of all, what's the state of our coral reefs out there in the Asia Pacific, where really the biodiversity center for marine species, corals and fish is located. Why we need to protect those, why the Conservancy is working in that part of the world, what are some of the threats that we face out there, and some of those threats will probably resonate here in South Carolina too, because a lot of the marine threats are pervasive all through the world. A little bit about what the Conservancy's been doing out there with partners for the last 20 years, and then I want to close off with what we're going to be, where we're going to be going from here, some of the stuff in the future going on. So that's you know, I was going to say if that's not what you're expecting, then you're in the wrong room. But so I'm going to take you over there. So I'll start out with a little bit of personal history. This is me in 1983, I think, and that's actually Debbie's mother, who's now in her 40s, so this is a long time ago. I went out to Micronesia as a young volunteer with the Jesuit province of New York. I actually went from California. I went out as an agriculture teacher. I actually have an agriculture degree, so it just goes to show you, you know, your degree doesn't really determine what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Who'd known I'd be doing a marine director and all this other stuff and be in Micronesia with an agriculture degree from California. I went out there hoping I'd change the world, like I think a lot of folks do straight out of college, and it was a rude awakening to go out to an island where there weren't any roads, there was no power, there was no running water. I lived in a thatch hut for 10 years with a kerosene lamp, and you ever seen anybody who's been overseas and used the mosquito coils? That's how we kept the mosquitoes off us every night. It was kind of like, what's worse, choking on the mosquito coil or getting eaten by mosquitoes? So it was an interesting place at that time. I've seen the island change quite a bit. We now have roads, we have running water. I came home to my thatch hut one day and there was a little plug for a telephone in it. Somebody came out and put a telephone plug. I said, well, thanks a lot. Now I need electricity. Nice to have a phone, but you can't see. Anyway, so it's been a while. And I actually, I got into the culture. I learned the language. I figured I'm going to be on this island for 2 years. So what else you got to do on a little island in the middle of nowhere? I learned the language. I'm glad I did because I'm still there 34 years later. And it's really nice to know the language. I also learned how to grow the giant yams. And manhood in Pohnpei is determined by how big the yam you can grow, and also the varieties you can bring to any feast. So we still have the feast. We have a king of the island. Actually, my wife is a princess. She's actually in the royal family. I didn't know that when I married her. This was a surprise later on. I found out I married into the royal family. I actually didn't know for 10 years. I was kind of clueless, you know. But it's important now. She's quite a ways up in her family, and her mother would be the king if she was a man, but she's not. So my wife's quite a ways up in the clan, and it's really nice to have that kind of influence on the island. Anyway, started the family, got things going. Now, Pohnpei is actually located, see if I can make this work, perfect. Pohnpei is located in what we call the Asia Pacific region. Now, how many people have been out in this region for work or for living, anything else? Oh, quite a few, not bad, not bad. So, the Asia Pacific region encompasses everything down from Mongolia, for TNC, we call it Mongolia, China, around India, down to Australia, and then all the Pacific Islands. And so this is kind of the area that the Nature Conservancy looks at. We actually have programs in China, Mongolia, Australia, Micronesia. There's 5 small countries there. Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and Solomon Islands. China's a division, and Australia's a division, and then my division is everything in between. So really interesting part of the world to work in. Those of you who've been in Indonesia or Papua New Guinea or something, for marine, there's no better place in the world to really see a lot of different kind of species and really get out there where people are still very, very connected to their environment. It's a really cool place. Now, other statistics about the Asia Pacific region, which is important, 30% of the Earth's land area is located in this area. Also about 20% of the Earth's marine area is located in what we call the Asia Pacific, halfway through the Pacific. It's also a place of lots of people. If you actually drew a circle from encompassing India and China and down around the Pacific, there's 4 billion people in this part of the world. And you know, the entire population hit 7 billion, what, about a year and a half ago? So more than half the world's population lives in this part of the world. So lots and lots of people, lots and lots of threats, because wherever people are, that's where the threats are. Almost hands down, that's the way it works. It's also a really, really quickly growing economic region, especially because of China and India and their very fast growing economies. About, right now, 25% or a quarter of the global domestic product is produced in this part of the world. So you put those things together and you've got a lot going on out there. There's two big natural systems that the Nature Conservancy focuses on. And the first one is the forests of Southeast Asia. And a lot of people don't think about this. When we think about forests, we think of the Amazon. And then if you know a little bit more about forests, you might think about kind of the band through Central Africa, Uganda, that area, a lot of forests in that area. We don't think that the third major band of forests reaches from just around South China, through the Southeast Asia, and down through the archipelago of Indonesia, and right through the island of Papua. And these forests here, they're pretty hammered, but these forests are actually more diverse than any other forest in the world, more diverse than the Amazon. And the one fact I heard, if you took 1 hectare, just about anywhere there where the forests were intact, if you took 1 hectare of forest and you looked at it, you would find more, in 1 hectare, you'd find more, let me tell you how this is, more species per hectare than the entire United States. So it just gives you kind of an idea. And I've gone out there, you do a forest transect, like, you run out, you just cannot, you do 300 or 400 species in a little 16-meter flat. It's just amazing. So lots and lots of diversity. At the same time, as I said, lots of threats. And these are fishing boats. How many people know where Raja Ampat is? Have you ever heard of that? It's got down here. Oh. This is a real special place. It's right down in here. We call this the Bird's Head of Papua New Guinea. And this is a place where, the threats are really heavy over here, and there's more threats out in the Pacific. This place somehow got passed off. This is the Spice Islands. Have you ever heard the story about Magellan looking for the Spice Islands? This is where nutmeg and cinnamon and all those kind of spices originate. So really fascinating place, and if you know your history, it's a place that lots and lots of colonial governments fought for hundreds of years, and a lot of people lost their lives there. But that particular area is known to be like really, really diverse. It's the heart of the Coral Triangle, and the reason I mention that because this is the fishing boats in Sorrow. Probably a city you've never heard of. This is like, you would think that's way out there and there's no threats. That's the harbor in Sorrow. It's overrun by Chinese fishermen. So pretty much anywhere in the world you're going to see threats, but particularly concentrated in this part of the world. Coral reefs provide subsistence for 1 billion people around the world. 100 million people in this part of the world are dependent on coral reefs for their livelihoods. Most of those people only make a couple $dollars a day. So there's a lot of people who are being impacted by all these threats. The other piece I want to say was we're seeing a degradation in the marine systems there. We just did we worked with a bunch of partners last year. We did a coral reef update for Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands. And what we found is in 1980, 40%, this is just a basic coral reef measure, and marine biologists help me out here because I'm more of I tell them I'm just a pretty face, but I understand that one of the real good measures of our marine biodiversity is coral cover on a reef. And what we found in 1980, there was about 40% cover on the coral reefs in Southeast Asia. Right now it's down to 20, just 30 years. So it's not old threats. So this is new stuff going on right now. The reefs are being hacked in that part of the world. So critical place to work.